what is the biggest feeling here? And I said, don't feel sorry for me. I've put myself in this mess. But my God, is it fulfilling.
Meet Cassidy Nicholson, the talented actress, screenwriter, casting director, content creator, and stand-up comedian. Business side of things, like what did you have to learn and upskill yourself on?
I think if you know how to do everything and you horizontally grow instead of chasing a promotion and vertically grow, I think that you'll find yourself indispensable. If I know how to write and I know how to act and I know how to produce and I know how to direct, and then I get a writing gig on something and they're looking for an actor, I can always be like, hey, cool, because now I've got my foot in the door. But if I disallowed myself that experience of writing because I was only an actor, then I wouldn't have been able to open that door and have that experience and have that opportunity open up to me.
You made a piece and then of course submitted it to Cannes. What is the intention behind that?
I started noticing something that I thought was very unhealthy, the glorification of being wholesome, of having a matcha first thing at 5 a.m. in the morning and then meditating and I'm like, what nut job can do all of this? We're getting ourselves into, I'm a failure because I'm not waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, dipping my face into a thing of ice, going to gym 5 times a day. And so I'm like, no. Let's talk about the authentic experience of making bad decisions and that being the drive to make a good decision. Being like, no, I can't believe I got I overdid it again. You know what? For the next week, I'm going to do at the gym. And then being like, oh my God, I fucking love this. I'm going to carry on doing it. But you wouldn't have gotten to that place of like, I need to be better if you didn't fail, if you didn't fall, and if you didn't feel guilty and dirty sometimes, if you didn't surrender to the heartbreak, the hurt, the disgust, the grotesque side of yourself, you wouldn't be able to experience yourself in enlightenment. And that for me, it was the act of not being wholesome, but being whole that made us people.
Just to wrap this up, what do you think needs to change? Cassidy.
Yes.
How would you describe the kitchen that you were cooked in growing up?
That I was cooked in?
Yes. And the analogy is, if I was a fly on the wall, what would I have experienced?
I moved around a lot as a kid. So the one that was pretty prominent in my life was at my ma's house and everything was brown. Everything was brown. Such a weird color for a kitchen. Beiges and brown. But now that I think about it, it's pretty aligned with Cape Town. Super beige. Yeah. So that, lots of tiles, big pots, all that stuff. There was always cooking and like stuff going around.
Very family oriented.
Very family oriented. Yeah.
Were you supported in terms of all your pursuits and what you wanted to do at from a young age?
This is quite a heavily weighted question because my mom was always, look, I was very left of center as a kid. And so my mom knew from a young age that I was going to go into the creative industry. But my dad, my dad being a person of color, kind of didn't really want to allow that. And in my later years, I see it's just because of all the sacrifice that he had made. And, he always says, it's just really important that I know that you're secure when I push up daisies. And I get that now. But, to answer your question, my dad kind of saw it as a hobby. He was like, the two can coexist. You can have a real job. And every now and again, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you can go to an acting class. You can go to a singing class. It doesn't mean you need to spend your life constantly on the verge of unemployment. And, I heard what he had to say and it wasn't a good enough answer for me because I just truly believe that I want to wake up every day knowing that I'm going to do something I love because then I'll never work a day in my life. And what a luxury that is, So my mom really supported me and really still pushes me. I think it's because she lives vicariously through me, but whatever. But my dad, he was very tough on me.
You know that the analogy of whose love do you crave the most and therefore you do things in accordance to get that approval?
My God.
Was it your dad?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, still to this day, he doesn't. I've had to make peace with the fact that I'll never get the "I'm proud of you" verbatim. But my aunt said to me, his sister, she said, you need to find peace in knowing that there are other ways he's going to tell you. So when my dad sends me my own video and goes, this is pretty cool, that's him saying I'm proud, you know. So I crave his approval, but that's just because, you know, shit, I could come home with like a really badly done Clay Cafe pot and my mom would be like, I love it, you know. But my dad would be like, come on, you know, he held me accountable. So yeah, I guess
I was
that's.
also listening to this podcast about you just need that one person who's in your corner. And that kind of undoes the traumatic experiences of not being seen, not being loved. Because that one person essentially supports you, has your back.
Yeah.
And that instills self-belief in you to
Yeah.
go out and do what you want to do.
Yeah, there's that thing on TikTok that's going around right now. It's like, this person clapped so loud for me, I didn't hear the noise of the others. And I think that's what, yeah, I agree with that. Like, my mom was definitely the hype man. She clapped so loud that I didn't really care what anyone else had to say.
And moving around, was it challenging to get settled?
You know, in another world, I'd probably say yes, but I was such a busy kid. You know, I always was doing something. So the fact, like, where I lay my head at night didn't really matter as long as I had my people, as long as my mom and my dad were there. I felt safe. My mom works in travel, so we traveled around a lot. You know, I was blessed enough, should I say, to be able to travel the world at a very young age. And so I could do that. And, you know, my dad also having a job where he constantly had to drive. Like, whenever I spent time with either one of my parents, we were moving around a lot. So it never felt out of place that that's what we were doing. And I think I was cognizant of the fact that they were in a mixed relationship. So settling down wasn't something they could do with ease. So yeah, I was actually okay with it. It was exciting for me.
Interesting. What did you notice, or was there anything different that you noticed of how you perhaps perceived by others with your parents, you know, being a mixed race couple?
Yeah, shit, this is normally a conversation I have when I'm drunk. But I did. And again, in my later years, I think I've become cognizant of these experiences. In my early years, I was kind of just like, what's this weird feeling? And it was the fact that I'm white passing and my mom's very much white and my dad's obviously not. So it was the fact that I wouldn't get the same looks as my other friends who were white and had two white parents, you know. I would kind of get the, who's he? And, you know, have to explain that was my dad and kind of get the, oh my gosh, Cassidy, there's a weird man following you. And it's like, that's my dad. So there was a lot of explaining all the time. My dad had a great sense of humor about it all. He kind of just was like, everyone here thinks we're dating. And I was like, that's so weird. I'm 12. Like, what are you doing? But I think that was just something that he had to tell himself so that he could make peace with the fact that people looked at him like, why are you hanging around with this little kid? So, you know, there were times when I got made fun of or people say things. It always starts with like, oh, I'm not racist, but, and you especially see people's, what their dynamic is when they're stuck in traffic. But I would notice that when they felt like every person of color left the room, they'd say something on the sly. And I'd be like, hey, just so you know, like the person you're saying things about, that's either my cousin or my uncle or my dad. And, I don't really fuck with that. Excuse me, I don't know if I can swear on this. Yeah, but I don't really know, I don't. And you've just assumed by what I look like that type of thing is okay. And that makes me kind of wonder what you're like at home with your family. So there was this constant thing of I had my walls up. There was a time when I walked a little bit further away from my dad as a kid, not because there was any sense of shame, but more so that I struggled with the fact that I didn't get the same looks of approval that my white friends did, even though we looked the same, but I didn't get that because I got and I didn't really want to be, I didn't want that. So
is there a point that you become okay with the looks, the remarks, the noise?
Around my matric year, going into, leaving school and stuff, I left a lot of those people behind. It literally took one day. One of my friends came up to me and was like, you know that this is what people think about you because these are the friends that you're keeping. And I shit you not, the next day I went to the library. I got the book that looked the hardest to read. And I went and I sat on my own. So if they were like, why aren't you hanging out with us? I'd be like, reading. But I wasn't. I just didn't want to be associated to those people anymore. And once I found power in being alone and enjoying my own company, I realized it really there was so much power in my vulnerability, in my being different, in the conversations that I could have, being able to start conversations that people feel uncomfortable having. So it took a moment of sacrifice, but the power then came in, and I got a lot closer to my family. I got a lot closer to the culture that I was brought up in, and I've just never looked back. I don't even associate myself with being white. Like, I am mixed. So yeah, it was just that one day of that kid coming to me at school and saying, the people that you hold, that's the reputation that, you have right now. And I didn't want that. I didn't want people who I didn't actually align with to have that power over me. And so, yeah, to answer your question, there was that moment. And that was the first day I sat on my own and realized it wasn't so bad.
It's so crazy because I was having this conversation with my friends this weekend. So they grew up in Oudtshoorn and they are people of color. And the stories that they would share with me are just wild.
Yeah.
People do not want to associate with them, or did not, at high school, primary school and high school, just because how that person would be perceived with their white friends.
Right?
They'd be outcasted.
Can't have a soft R or a hard R or whatever. Like, it's the constant, oh, you speak rah-rah. Like, I was too white for my family, and I was too, like, ethnically ambiguous for my white friends. It was quite crazy. And what was so funny is my dad always told me, the colored kids will know. They'll know. They'll see you and they'll be like, she's one of us. And I just always felt so at home with them. I always felt like, because we grew up playing the same games, we lived in the same areas. And so it was just like, I really felt like, and even now, if I'm, having a braai or a drink or whatever with mates, it's preferred in those settings because there's a level of like, I can hoosa. I don't have to like constantly have a guard up in case someone says something. And it's exactly that. It's all of that perception. It was crazy.
Just to wrap this up, what do you think needs to change?
Okay. What do I think needs to change? I think people should definitely try dating outside their race. I think that's really, really a big thing. I think people need to be open to cultures, in the sense that, like, go eat other foods, go hang out in the areas, go to like the Kaapse, the Klopse, you know what I mean? Like, go to those things and figure out what it is that makes these people like, cool. Go to the car show, go to the candlelight, the singing by candlelight, all that stuff. Go to different things where you wouldn't necessarily find yourself and see how that makes you feel. A lot of the time when I would travel with my mom, first time traveling overseas, I'd be like, oh, I want the Wendy's or I want the Burger King or whatever. And then my mom was like, no, we're going to go down to the local store. We're going to go and buy the local foods. We're going to eat the local foods. We're going to immersify ourselves in the cultures. And I think that is what gives people the ability to go, hold on, I actually quite like this. And realizing why they did it, taking a moment to like, just relinquish your judgments and say, okay, well, why did we do it? Like, for example, I dated this guy and he was Bulgarian. And a lot of the time when we would practice like these traditional events and things with his family, I realized that a lot of it came from struggle. And now it's almost like that traditional thing, like they eat a lot of bread and they have a lot of things where it's like they put the 5 rand in the bread and whoever gets the 5 rand, that's like wealth for the year and all of that stuff. And I thought to myself, it's probably because of, there was a time when they didn't have anything, so they needed to make something out of nothing. I mean, one of the most popular colored dishes is cabbage food. And it's like cabbage was something that when there was nothing, they could make something from that. So it's like these traditions lie within struggle, and then sitting in that, it's actually really beautiful,
100%. It's also the willingness.
Yes.
What's behind all of that is you willing to put yourself out there to go and try that food.
Totally. Like, just take a second and leave your ego at the door and just allow yourself to feel something. And it's totally okay if you don't like it. It's okay if you feel uncomfortable. It's okay if you feel vulnerable, because you have to ask yourself, why am I feeling like this? And when you start having those conversations, I think there's growth.
Somehow, my friends and I got speaking about trifle. Right? You just sparked my thought about something. So you know, at the bottom, like you can, I don't know, use all different types of bases. So she said, oh, she actually used the Woolworths Madeira loaf, right?
Okay.
Because that's like
Yes.
super yummy.
Yeah.
And then she says, oh, thinking back, her family actually used Mari biscuits at the bottom.
Yes. Yeah. So do we.
And she was like, oh, why is that? And then she was like, at the time, they couldn't really afford
Of
cake.
course. Yeah.
And so Mari biscuits was used as the base. And I was like, yo,
Yeah,
that's
and it's
so-
crazy to think about it because now I actually have such a yearning for trifle. I'm a trifle girly. Get rid of that peppermint tart. That peppermint crisp, it's great, but why are you eating toothpaste? Yeah, why are you eating toothpaste? I don't know. There's something about the fact that like you just put everything in a bowl. It's so great. I love it. Yeah, but it's a struggle food, and it's like there's so much tradition around it, and I wouldn't give that up for the world. Yeah.
acting. So I read
Talk
that
to
you
me.
first started when you were 8.
Yes.
You know what? Was there a point in which you were like, this could be a career full time?
Yeah. At the moment I started it, I was the kid that did the dances and the plays and whatever for my family. Like there was a rugby game on, and I was like, in the braai room, guys, seats are set out. I'm sorry. You need to speak to the production manager. I was a production manager, but I was like this. I came alive, and I think it's because I was so deeply self-aware from a very young age, and the ability to play took me out of that. The fact that I could lose myself in a character and any judgment that came from that, well, that's not me. That's a character. It's this ability of like that reckless abandon to totally leave yourself and to feel fully. What a privilege, as a human being to feel fully is like unheard of, and to be vulnerable and to allow yourself the inner monologues and the inner conversations that you have. And so from a very young age, I felt alive. And it's almost like, now in acting class, you have this conversation and they say like, when you lose yourself and forget everything, that's when you've been honest and that's when you've been present. And not in a bad way, but I struggle with honesty because I told you off camera that I'm a people pleaser. So I struggle to speak my truth. And when I'm playing a character, all I am is honest because all I can be is present. And so I started at 8 and my mom knew that I liked to play and I liked to play like characters and whatever. And so I actually was on SABC's Small Talk, which was crazy now that I think about it. But yeah, I was in all the school plays, got to a point when I was writing the school plays. I had a Camp Space Cinema Club, which I started, which we kind of sat and broke down how the film worked and what it looked like BTS versus, and the actual show and things like that. And then it was just a group of kids that really just liked cinema, and it was a group of kids that really just enjoyed breaking down the human experience,
Did you find it challenging to take off that hat and, be in the world?
I did. That's kind of what I'm navigating right now. I'm trying to figure out when I can stop playing, because when you don't know what you do for fun and what you do for work anymore, it's quite debilitating. You get to a point where you are extremely burnt out and you don't even know why you love what you do anymore. So it was because like, even when I'm out having drinks with friends, it's constantly like, oh, what did you think of this performance? And how could you, and they're like, Cassidy, we don't need to work now. And it's because I'm so deeply passionate about it. And I need to figure out like, okay, we can talk about surface stuff, like what they wore to the Grammys, I guess, if that matters. Not everything has to be so deep. But I'm one of those people. So there is a time and a place for it, but I normally find with the people that are as passionate about it as I am, that's when I feel like I'm playing. Whereas if someone else isn't as passionate about it, that's when I need to take the hat off and I need to be like, where can we find a middle ground? How can we communicate and both be present and both feel stimulated? So yeah, that's pretty much the only time I take the hat off.
I know firsthand how overwhelming it can be to start and grow a podcast from scratch. From figuring out your show's concept, deciding between audio or video, learning how to record and edit, to wondering how you'll stand out in a sea of other podcasters out there. That's why I'm super excited to share that I've teamed up with Latitude Podcast Studio and podcast coach and industry pro, Sean Lutz. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your podcast to the next level, Sean has the tools and experience to help you get there. Head over to seanlutz.com to book your free call today, and make sure you tell Sean that the African CEO sent you. Back to the episode. And from a skills point of view, did you study?
I self-taught.
Okay.
I've done a lot of courses. I did an acting course and stuff. We just couldn't afford it. And whenever I have enough cash or disposable income, should I say, then I'm constantly learning. I think if you know how to do everything and you horizontally grow instead of chasing a promotion and vertically grow, I think that you'll find yourself indispensable. I believe that if I know how to write and I know how to act and I know how to produce and I know how to direct, and then I get a writing gig on something and they're looking for an actor, I can always be like, hey, cool, because now I've got my foot in the door. But if I disallowed myself that experience of writing because I was only an actor, then I wouldn't have been able to open that door and have that experience and have that opportunity open up to me. So whenever I have free time and disposable income, I look at where my skill set is lacking and I throw myself into it, and I humble myself. Again, I leave my ego at the door and I say, how can I, because ultimately my dream in this life is to tell stories, to tell honest stories and create conversations and remind human beings that we know how to feel. And that isn't only done through acting. And I needed to make peace with that when, like, you know, I thought I was going to be famous and whatever, because that's also not what the goal is. So once I had made peace with that, and then I fell in love with writing, and then I fell in love with directing, and I was just like, okay, amazing. So
how did you know how to do that? Because I mean, you know, we build skills to get what we want, right? Skills is not the end. It's the conduit towards getting the thing that you want.
I think I had worked a bunch of jobs that really made me feel dead inside. Like, I don't ever want to have to wake up again and go, oh, I don't want to go to work. Like, what is that? If you don't want to do something, don't. It's like if I offered you heroin and I said, here, take it. Are you going to say, oh, okay, fine? No, because you don't want to do it. So why do we condition ourselves to saying, I need to do something for the rest of my life and call it a career and call it a job? Yeah, okay, cool. It pays money. But if I gave you heroin and I said, I'll give you 100 rand if you do heroin, like, are you going to tell me that you can find a way to say, okay, that seems doable? Because, I mean, it definitely does. It affects your mental health. It affects your actual health. And here we are going, no, but like drugs are bad for you. So is doing something every single day for the rest of your life that you genuinely don't want to, you know? So I think I've just always had that mindset, and working those jobs and never being able to, no matter how hard I tried, never being able to be as good as the kids or the people that were passionate about it really upset me. So I wanted to find something that I could, because you know what, you can have talent and that can take you so far, but you can have passion and you can ride that wave right down to the end, you know. So
it's interesting, right? Because I also think about this. Why do people stay in those dead-end jobs? Why do people stay in relationships that are bad for them? Why do people not make the change? And I think the first thing is, I don't think that they think that they have a choice.
Agreed.
Right. And then the second thing is, the pain at which they're operating is not great enough for them to make the change. So that pain of staying is still less than the pain of making the change.
Yeah. And don't you think it's also easy to control? I think a lot of people like to sit in anger or sit in pain or sit in sadness because they know what to expect and they know what the outcome is, as opposed to fully surrendering and possibly failing. There's no control in that. You may fall or you may fly, right? But the concept of not being able to tell which one you're going to do is like, I can understand that that's an ego death in itself. So I just, you know, I would have arguments and with people, and I was like, you like to sit in this because you know that, like, you can sit and you can be angry and you can be angry for way too long. Like, you're holding on to this pain for what, like 2 weeks now? And you could have chosen to let it go and just to, you know, grin and bear it
100%.
and move on. But it was easier to say, yeah, but I'm choosing to feel like this. I'm not going to let my pain, like, I don't want to let someone else make me feel something. And that for me, I was just like, that's like that's, I don't know. That's basically suicide.
Yeah, I think it's much easier to play the victim.
Oh, of course.
And then, of course, our human...
Always me.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think,
Yeah.
that's...
It's not, I don't
way
know.
too easy,
No,
right?
it is. And that's the thing. I think, speaking to my therapist about this, I think it's a control thing. I think it's deeply linked to control.
Yeah, one of our 6 human needs, I can't remember which table this was, like there's so many out there, but one of the core needs is the need for certainty.
Yes.
And so if we're playing in an area that's uncertain and we haven't developed that ability to trust and to perhaps, have faith that it's going to work out.
Totally.
I can see why we stay in the certainty, because I know the outcome, I know what's going to happen.
Exactly,
I know,
right?
Perhaps no worst case.
You can find peace in that.
Yes, that's
Even
true.
though you won't necessarily find like happiness. It's like what matters more to you at the end of the day. And sometimes it's okay for some people. It's just not for me.
One of my favorite quotes is, go to the darkest caves because that's where the hidden treasure lies.
Yeah, that's like, it's that whole concept of like life happens out of your comfort zone, right? Yeah, I
100%.
agree with that.
And, fast forward a bit, how are you able to like get, gigs and roles and...
Oh, okay. This is quite fun and exciting because this is kind of where I started like learning a little bit about myself and what made me tick. It's a numbers game. It's all a numbers game. And I think people need to... So my acting coach, his name is Matthew Harrison, and he teaches a whole thing about like how to put your business side first. Like when I'm going to an audition, then I'm the product. Then I'm going to play. Then I'm going to become my most childlike version of myself. But when I'm sitting with someone and we're talking about our strategy or our content rollouts or things like that, I'm not going to play there. I need to take my business mind and I need to go, okay, how can I capitalize and how can I monetize? So realizing that, when I started making content, I was like, okay, shit, I've got something stupid. Like I didn't even have 1,000 followers. And also I think most of them were bought. I was very insecure as a kid. So I basically had like 200 followers, legit 200 followers. And I found power in that because I was like, cool, it is a lot easier to get 200 likes on a photo than it is to get 20,000 likes on a photo, which means that my engagement rate is going to be a lot higher than someone of, who has 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 followers. So for me, it was pitching the loyalty, the fact that I have an audience, because my God, all you need from your audience is loyalty. Then you can sell them anything. You can convince them that white is black and you can sell ice to an Eskimo, so to speak, right? But you need to get that loyalty first. And so for me, it was really important that I capitalized on the small amount that, that small following that I had, being a micro influencer at the time. I was like, okay, cool, that's that. But at the same time, realizing that, as I said, it's a numbers game. Brands attract brands. So people think I sat and I just waited for things to come. No, I worked in hospitality for a very long time. So I know how to pitch myself and I know how to speak to people. I know the art of the cold yes and the warm no, of never telling someone, oh, we don't have that, but instead coming up, being solutions based, should I say. So I put together a little template, and what I did was I emailed and I DM'd 100 brands a day. So every day when I would go and scroll, I would allow myself half an hour of leeway of like complete and utter, like go in the scroll hole, it's okay, right? And every time a brand stuck out to me or I liked something, I would add it to a little folder and say brands to pitch to. And then I would go on my template and I would go and email and DM, and you never allow a brand to say no. You never say, thank you so much for your time. Like, oh my goodness, stop, that's so embarrassing. You'll ask them at the end, like, allow me to connect me with the person who I need to talk to take this further. That is your power of the cold yes, the warm no. You're not giving them an option to say no, And even then, if they don't want to connect you with that person, now you'll be able to navigate due to tone and whatever, whether you actually want to work with this person or not, because they are going to respond to you because you've left it open-ended. But at the same time, you also work on a little bit of like manipulation tactics of like getting on their radar, liking their photos. Because how embarrassing is it to pitch yourself to a brand and then they've never even heard of you?
100%.
You know what I mean? And then they see and then you don't even follow them. Oh, I love your brand so much. No, clearly, right? So I would go and I'd interact with them and I'd say, okay, cool, we're going to do 2 weeks of play. We're going to play with them. We're going to chat to them in the DMs. We're going to say, how's it? How you? Oh my God, I love this. Yeah, it's so great. Da, 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 da. Now, by the time you send them that pitch, They're like, shit, yeah, no, she does love the brand. And when someone genuinely loves the brand, they are so much better as a salesperson than if they don't, right? So I would play that numbers game because at the end of it, after sending 100 DMs and 100 emails, you're bound to get one. Just one. One person who believes in you. And at the end of the week, I've got 7, right? So now 7 brands every single week. Are you kidding? And I'm doing that's undersell, over deliver type thing. Under promise, over deliver. And now at the end of it, there's so much content coming out of my ears. And I'm just producing, getting it out, that at some point people are like, this chick is working with everyone and we've never heard about her. Why have we never heard about her? Also, she's doing innovative stuff because she's playing onto the human experience of being vulnerable and authentic. She's making khat. But here she is, driving a car and selling earrings. And it's just because I aligned myself with people and brands that I genuinely loved, pitched myself to them. They saw the genuine adoration and they were like, okay, shit, let's give her a try. And it cost them nothing. So that was how it started, and it quickly built after that. And, in my time of wanting to get filler content, that was when I was like, hey, remember me? I made all these skits and whatever. And I spoke about my journey a lot. I spoke about the fact that I come from a mixed household. I spoke about the fact that I'm, a struggling actor. And I did all of those, and I had those really difficult conversations because that facade of being perfect, it's just so unrelatable. And then you have all these followers that don't like you. Your loyalty's out the window,
You know what I noticed? Because like you, I believe it's a numbers game.
Totally.
And everything that you described there is like phenomenal.
Thank you.
Why don't people want to first send 100 a day or a week? Let's say even 100 a week.
Yeah,
right?
that's a lot still.
100 a week is still a lot. Why don't people want to do it? And then I think the second follow-up question is, you're getting a lot of rejection.
Totally.
Because now you're converting 1%. If 1 out of 100 says yes, that's 1%.
Yeah.
How did you deal with the
I think this is when my acting came in. It's not about you. It's nothing is about you. People only notice the pimple once you tell them, please don't look at my pimple. No one cares. Everyone is so self-serving. Everyone is so selfish, and it shouldn't be a bad thing because you can only be selfless after you've been selfish, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. So it's not about you. Okay? A director of a movie can watch Heath Ledger and Brad Pitt, both of which extremely brilliant actors. Because they don't want to work with Brad Pitt, are you telling me that they're saying Brad Pitt is a bad actor? No, they're just saying that Heath Ledger is better for the role. So if you're a director and you want a pineapple and a banana comes in, it doesn't mean the banana is a shitty fruit. It just means I want a pineapple. But sometimes you can be so good that I want a pineapple and you can convince me that actually what I need is a banana. So learning that it's not about you. You are a service. You're a product. Listen, the Kardashians, people love the Kardashians, but people also love sport, okay? They go onto ESPN for sport and they go onto E! Entertainment News to watch the Kardashians or Hulu or whatever, But they are not denying the one's existence by enjoying the other. And I think people need to realize just because I wasn't right for this doesn't mean I'm worthless or, and I think once you've realized that, like, okay, it's product and service based, it's how much can I put out, like, cool, it's no right now, I
guess what I'm hearing from that is not to take things personally.
Oh, absolutely not. Like, what are we doing?
But it takes a very secure person to not take things personally.
Yeah, I think it's mindset. I think it's that victim thing. If you set yourself up for, I will be victorious in my journey, then it's, it's all that bullshit of like, it's not rejection, it's redirection.
100%.
And I'm not necessarily secure. I'm just I believe in the fact that I will be successful one day, and I don't think that some brand telling me no is what's going to throw me off. I don't think that's the straw that broke the camel's back. Does
it fuel you? Does the rejections and the no's fuel you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just like, oh, why I yada, I'm just like, that's okay. And then I sometimes see the person they chose, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I was chatting to a friend of mine when we were talking about auditions. sometimes we have the ability to see the audition tape of the person that got the role, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because you think you owned it, you crushed it, and then you see it and you're like, I know what they were going for. And it was a moment that you missed, or it was just, you just weren't that taste. And that gives you peace as well. You're just like, yeah, okay, cool. They were going for a lifestyle creator. I'm a comedian, you know. So.
Got you, yeah. I feel to that extent, I do take it personally. Because if you say no to me, I'm using that as fuel.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not going to identify with the rejection and be like, oh, I am this.
Yeah, no,
you know,
and
X,
you shouldn't.
Y, and Z. But using that as fuel, I feel like it's helpful.
Yeah,
right?
totally, right? Like redirect that
100%.
energy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, you know, was COVID the time where you really delved into your kind of content creation side of things?
Yeah, I was very, very aware of the fact. You'll come to realize I'm a very self-aware person. I'm constantly like people watching and stuff. And I just noticed that, and it's going to sound quite funny, but there's a movie where Johnny Depp plays a lizard, Rango. And they say something in Rango, and it's the way to control people is through hope and fear, because those are the two strongest emotions. And I just realized in COVID, I sat back one day and I was like, hope and fear. And I was just like, this is crazy. People were constantly watching the news and reciting these numbers as if they meant something. And, you know, all just hitting pots and pans together at the end of the night. Like, how crazy is that? And that was so visceral. It was the hope and fear that I needed to be like, oh shit. Okay. So I then took those feelings and I said, how can I be, you know, how can I become a cog in this hope and fear situation? And that's when I was like, what's in my arsenal right now? My arsenal is that I know how to present on film, on camera. I know how to tell a joke. I have skill sets, like I can write and I can produce and I'm an actor and whatever. Shit, let me put some stuff together. And I started writing and I sat for what was 2 weeks, and I made character Bible after character Bible after character Bible for each of these characters that I was doing. And that's when I was like, shit, everyone's on their phone right now. They're like permy on their phone. And I was like, shit, okay, let's capitalize. Let's go. And that was when I just was not going to be victim to circumstance once again. I was not going to be the girl who had a lisp so she wouldn't be a good actor. I wasn't going to be the girl who was too short. I wasn't, because we had nothing but time. And for years, I had heard conversations about, I don't have enough time. And I was like, you guys are going to see. You're either going to make it or you're going to break it during this lockdown time. And so, yeah, I really came into my own in that time.
And what's the intention behind your characters? Like, where does it come from?
A lot of it comes from the people in my life. Like Constantia Mom is based off my mom, but also my mom's not drinking at 12. So there was the ability to play a little bit, creative freedom. But I felt it was really important to have real conversations, yet again, tell real stories, have real conversations with people that we knew. Like, my God, to the ability to talk about, I almost want to say, I brought George Floyd up quite a bit because that had quite an impact on me. And people were like, isn't this tone deaf because you're using Constantia Mom to talk about George Floyd? And I was like, no, it's my job to speak about things that I feel, you know, that I'm involved in and whatever, to create conversation. And here we are talking about it. And that comment, someone said to me, you've given me a lot of food for thought and you've actually gained a follower. Because here I thought you were doing it in jest, just trying to take the mickey. And I was like, no, I'm using something that people love watching right now. And I'm using that as a weapon to have a very real conversation. And here we are doing that in the comments. Was I not successful? Yes or no? I did not at any point make light of a situation. The same way that comedians speak about very real issues in politics and whatnot in their stand-ups, they're not saying that it ceases to be or that it's stupid. They're just finding a way to have a palatable conversation.
Is it challenging to balance the humor with, real issues?
Oh yeah, people don't understand satire. It's common sense is very expensive, I like to say, and people like Ricky Gervais says it best. He says, how how arrogant are you to think that no one is ever going to offend you in this lifetime? Like saying you have a sore leg. Okay, you have a sore leg. I can't do anything about your sore leg, but that's your experience. Say, I'm offended, or I don't like that video. Not, it is offensive, or that's your experience of something. And so it is quite challenging, but I have to remember that, like, my sense of humor is not the same as your sense of humor. And I am one of those people that I've used comedy as a coping mechanism my whole life, but it's the only way that I can sit around a braai with friends and have real conversations, because shit, the moment things get dark and deep, people don't want to have the conversation anymore because they're like, I don't want to deal with this now. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves, you know? So let's find a way to enjoy ourselves and have the conversation at the same time. It's difficult to navigate, but it's possible.
You know, the kind of split between communities in terms of, so 20% will be like the loyal of the loyal. So
Yeah.
you describe them as like, you could tell them that this is white when it's actually black.
Black, and
right?
they'd be like, yeah, exactly.
And then you get 60% that's beyond that they're just neutral. Like they like you, they think you're funny, but they're not really engaging.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, I'm doom scrolling.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
this girl's
Right?
funny.
Yeah.
I'll follow her.
Yeah.
And then there's the 20%.
Oh, they just want to have something to say.
Those are the ones that essentially you piss off.
Yeah. But like, ugh, whatever. Who cares about them, right? Like
100%.
they literally had the option to go. And instead, they took time out of their very busy day to be like, hey, I didn't like this. Just, thanks.
And you know what's ironic? Is that by them engaging it actually helps you.
Exactly. I'm like, tell me again why you don't like it. Say it slowly.
Share
you
this
know
with
what I
your
mean?
friend and
Exactly.
tell them why.
Yeah, tell them why you hate me. Ugh. Yeah, exactly. Silly.
What's your creative process like? Is there one?
It depends on what I'm putting out. A lot of the time, if it's comedy based, I'll have a purpose, a conversation that I'm trying to have. I'll normally find an end and a beginning, so I can like loop it and be a little bit creative, just based on social media platforms. But I will try and make it like crack, in the sense of like Coco Melon. We have a really short attention span, and the reason why Coco Melon is like crack for babies is because I think the setup changes every 2 to 3 seconds. So it's like, how can I have this conversation with like 500 different setups? So I'll normally think about it more logistically, and then I'll just go with it, and I'll go with the feeling, and I'll be like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I obviously know the rules of comedy, you know, doing callbacks and things happen in 3, 6s, and 9s and all that stuff. So that's like innate within me, but it's normally from a logistical standpoint. Whereas my creative experience when it comes to like writing or doing a short film or something like that, normally I'll normally have to sit in a room alone and, you know, create an ambiance and play some music and feel my feelings. And then I actually go into a whole nother person, and then I come back and I'm like, shit, who wrote that? It's pretty banging, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And is it easy for you to kind of, I mean, I like to call it getting to state. So you could be, you know, having
That flow state. Yeah.
Yes, of course, that would be ideal. But getting into state, meaning like if an example is I was ill this week, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm recording now and I'm having these conversations and now I'm in the state.
Okay.
I'm not thinking about
Yes.
how I feel. I'm like just being present here.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like waking myself up and
Exactly.
you know, doing all these things, like getting into state, like doing something physical to change how I'm feeling. Right? Is it easy for you to like switch between perhaps character and then?
I think there's normally like a sentence or whatever. Like if I'm getting into a character, then there's normally like a sentence that I would have to say to, you know, convert accents and like try and like whatever to get physically into character. But normally it just takes me a beat and like just the act of surrender. So just like to I'm normally someone that has to identify like, okay, that's what that sounds like. That's what that looks like. Just like calling those things out and seeing them. I think I almost want to say it takes the acknowledgement of what I'm feeling and what's going on around me to get me into that state. And then just telling everyone, I'm here right now. Don't like, unless I'm talking to you, don't bring me out of this. Don't ask me. Don't need me. If anything, for the next 15 minutes, I'm dead to you guys, right? So I have to acknowledge what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. And I have to I need a moment of like, this is what I'm going to do. I can't kind of just find myself and go, oh, inspiration. I need to set myself up for that success. I need to, physically go and take myself away.
And, identifying as a creative, what do you struggle with in the creative process and like actually creating?
Oh, releasing. I think that there's this part of me that feels a little bit dead once I've released it, really exhausted. The first time I released a short film was the I'm Not Wholesome piece.
Oh, sorry, actually.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first time I released that, and it came with a lot of really, really kind and beautiful things. People were like, this is the content we've been waiting for. This is what you've been hiding. You can make stuff like this. And it almost felt like a little bit of an attack, because I was like, shit, now people know what I'm capable of. Now they're not going to allow me to play and have those like silly little moments anymore, which felt quite, it felt like a loss, a big loss for me. And also like, you've spent so long with this baby of yours, and now you have to let it go, and you have to let people consume it, and you have to allow people to not like it and hate it and love it. And you just need to be okay with that, because it's now, and realizing again, it's not about you. It's not about you. This can make people angry, and that's okay. But I think there's that momentary feeling of like, this isn't mine anymore. It's not precious anymore.
And do you have these reminders in place? Like, how do you kind of, combat that?
I just do. I just have to feel it. Hey, I'm just like, I still struggle to this day that people don't always see the things that I put out as art or whatever. But I have to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, fuck, Cassidy, the more you do it, the more you'll come alive. And because it's like so scary to do it. But once I've done it, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm going to experience a little bit of sadness. But then after that, I'm going to feel this joy of like, I took the bull by the horns and I had the conversation I wanted to have.
It's almost detaching yourself from
Yes,
the art.
Exactly.
I feel like that's challenging though.
Yeah.
Because like you've spent this time pouring your heart into this, piece of work. And now it's out for the public to essentially
dissect.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's like, also when people just don't see what you're trying to do, but it's not your creative experience anymore. You can't just be like, hey, dum no. So it's crazy. I have to just allow them to experience it.
I think there's always going to be the 20% as well that you have to
always. And it's not for them, but okay. Yeah.
And on the business side of things, like what did you have to learn and upskill yourself on? Like from first, just putting content out there to now actually...
I think I'm still learning. I'm learning how to... We are living in such a fickle world right now that I need to learn that collaboration is not a bad thing. I can collaborate with a brand, but I struggle to collaborate with creators because I don't know who that creator is behind closed doors. And God forbid something comes out where they're not a nice person. And then people then go and attack, the people in there. Yes. And it's like, how was I supposed to know that this man was literally like poisoning his mom? He only allowed this much of his world to me, and now this is the type of person that and you don't always know. And it sucks for me. So again, controlling, I just rather not collaborate with anyone. And I rather let any type of growth happen organically through me, because I just don't want to be in a situation where someone else through the grapevine is getting cancelled and now I'm getting cancelled just because, I'm like, I genuinely didn't know,
Is that a fear?
Yeah, it is. And I think that stems back to being associated and having a reputation that precedes me that I had no control over making. Like, your reputation is everything. Your integrity is everything. And when you allow someone else to dictate how others feel about you, I already struggle with not, feeling good enough. But I will do everything in my power to make sure that it is not external. Like that I can be 100% perfect within my product and my craft. Because, if it's something that I can't control, that's what's going to drive me up the wall. Like if I surrender my control and it's just like, let's say for example, I've lost many a job to the fact that I'm too short or that I have a lisp. And a lot of the time it's deeper than that. It's not actually people like bullying me or disliking me because people are like, oh, but how can they say no? It's like, well, you can't necessarily be the most like brilliant main character if you've got this comedic lisp. You know what I mean? It's just about the way that people perceive things naturally, inherently, like, you know, their subconscious mind and stuff. So I've lost many a role to that, but that's out of my control because I don't know. I have a speech impediment, so I don't know how to control that, right? But if I knew how to control that, yeah, absolutely, I would do something about it because that's out of my control. Right? So now if I can have that moment where I'm like, I don't want to associate or collaborate with this person because I don't want them to have any sort of, I don't want them to dictate how my career goes. I think that that's okay, but that's the business aspect that I'm struggling with because collaboration is how you grow. And I'm just like, no, I don't want that, you know? I fear.
It's interesting because that could also happen with brands, right?
Yes.
And I think that I myself find that I tend to focus on the things that I can't control instead of, you know, the things that I can control.
Yeah.
And of course, like our mind wants us to go to why they're not responding. So, you know, on that business side of things, how are you able to kind of get good deals and not, you know, be taken advantage of?
Well, I have a manager now because I was getting I was a walkover for a very long time, and I was actually I was missing meetings, and I was just not being a very good, like, I'm all great on like professionalism and stuff like that, but it was just like not having the full ability to read a contract and understand a contract, like what they meant by certain things, you know? And so that I needed to relinquish a little bit of that control of my brand and to have faith in someone and say, hey, listen, can you be the big bad person for me on my behalf so that they still see me with a little halo on the top of my head? Can you do that for me? And they were like, yeah, sure, for a small fee. So I've made peace with that, and that's really helped me in that regard.
Okay. And even the recruiting part of that manager, did you have kind of like this system in place?
Oh, I trial and error. I went through working with friends, awful. I went through,
Why?
Yeah, because they're your friends. There's a part where you can't put that manager hat on and take it off. Like, okay. I've worked with a friend before, and they couldn't see me as a boss. They would challenge everything I said, and I was like, no. We're not discussing this as friends. I'm telling you that this is what you have to do. And they're like, but you can't tell me what to do. It's like, I quite literally can. If you're and I know it sounds like I'm super bitchy, but it's like, I've been working on my brand for 5 years. You've been doing this for what, 2 weeks? And now you want to tell me that you like are not going to work unless you can go and buy your rolling stuff? No, it's not. It's like, you know, it's like you're in a meeting at work and you're like, sorry, boss, I need to go and have a joint. Like, no, you don't need to. You want to, and you don't need to do that right now. We're here now. But because I'm a friend and they know me as a friend, they think that they can have those, you know, that they can challenge me and stuff. So that, I didn't want to put myself in that situation. And then also just working with people who see me as a side hustle. I'm not, you know, like if you're going to be my manager or you're going to be my assistant or whatever, there are roles and expectations that you need to fulfill. And, you know, if you're only able to do that half of the time, then what are we doing? We're confusing the client because half the time you're talking to them and half the time I am. And now the information is getting split and we're playing broken telephone. So there was also that. And then lastly, I experienced someone who was a manager, but also wanted to be an influencer. So was sitting in on meetings with clients after I had left, trying to say, hey, listen, if it doesn't work with Cassidy, you can also work with me. And that's when I was like, ooh, ew. So I kind of had to go to a reputable agency and say, listen, do you do personality-based, you know, like managing and stuff like that? And they're like, yeah, we do. And so I am with an agency, Joburg-based and then Cape Town-based as well.
Yo, that's so wild.
Yeah, no, sometimes you just got to go to like the people that actually do that for a living.
100%.
Yeah.
I think the lack of commitment part is a big red flag.
Yes, totally.
If you are saying to me that this is just your side hustle,
Yeah, it's like, listen, I have like the moment you see something as a real job,
Yeah.
you will put in the work. People are always like, yeah, but I can't just like, I really want to do what you do, but I can't just like give up my job. Why? You know what I mean? I had to also sit and like bite my tongue and be like, okay, this is a job. I need to get up every day at 6, go to the gym. Like I need to do the things that you think is for fun. And I need to live that truth and be like, that is my job. Going to the gym is my job. Making sure that I, put makeup on my face for a video. It is my job. Yes, it looks fun because you do it for fun, but I have to do it like, religiously. And when I started seeing things like that, like getting someplace at a certain time and doing something like that type of stuff is work. So you have to treat it like that in order for it to come out, like that.
Do you struggle with releasing control?
Yeah. What
Control
gave it
of
away? Yeah, I do. I struggle to delegate. I'm in a place right now where I have been delegating quite a bit, and I've been getting now I'm opening myself up to being let down. And that also, like, it's like I gave you a chance and I gave you 90% of the pie because I'm big on company culture. So if I work with someone, I pay them really well and stuff because I want people to feel like, oh, she's trusted me. I'm now going to play and I'm now going to, but I know it sounds bad, but to link it back to, my dad was very honest with me and not in a way that he wanted to, I almost want to say like dismantle my ego as a kid, but my dad was like, you're a very small, cute girl, which means naturally a lot of people will think that they can take advantage of you. And so you will have to go out of your way to do certain things to demand attention. And he's not saying that again to dismantle, my character, but instead just calling a spade a spade. It's the same way you'd tell a person of color, listen, if they lived in the States, listen, you don't have the ability to question the police. There are certain things you need to just call a spade, and that was one of them. And so I am trying to fulfill this need that I had when I was working in corporate, needing to feel seen, needing to feel trusted. And so now I'm giving people that, but at the same time, I'm living proof of what my dad said, which was people will take advantage of you every opportunity they get. And so I still have brands who like haven't paid me or videographers who haven't done all the content that I've paid them for and things like that. And it's like, that is ultimately, I end up taking that on and going, what have I done? And it's sometimes because I've trusted people too much. So I struggle to relinquish control because of what I'm scared of and because of what's happened. And maybe it's because I need to learn about boundaries, but my people pleaser part is not there yet. I haven't unlocked boundaries in that game yet.
But it's also a fine balance because yes, you want to trust that person can do that job.
Yes.
But at what point does that become like a limiting belief?
Exactly.
To the point in which now you trust nobody and you expect people to let you down?
Oh, I don't ever want to get to a point where I expect people to let me down. I always kind of have faith. Like, going to a hairdresser and micromanaging how they do your hair, I get that, but you've probably had your hair cut badly one too many times. But you have to trust that you have trusted this professional to do something. You don't know how to do it, which is why you're there in the first place. Give them free rein. Tell them your inspiration. Tell them what your expectations are, and then let them do it. My worst thing, just for analogy's sake, my worst thing is when someone gets their makeup done and they need to systematically check what their face looks like. Like, babe, you're not just going out with foundation. I need to contour. I need to brighten. I need to put blush on. Like, put the mirror down and let me finish what I need to do and then look at your face. You know what I mean? Don't micromanage the creative experience. So I think I answered your question. I don't know if I did. Maybe.
Yeah, well, at times I do micromanage, especially a new barber.
Yeah. No, okay, that makes sense. I'm the same with my eyebrows. Like, I see you wanting to go thin. This isn't early 2000s. Let me live my Cara Delevingne dream, please. Yeah, so I get that.
So, fast forward a bit in your journey, you released a piece, that you made a piece and then, of course, submitted it to Cannes. What is the intention behind that? And then, follow-up question is, how did it feel to get that?
Okay. So I've actually done it twice, should I say. My first piece was I'm Not Wholesome. It was actually a conversation I had been meaning to have for the longest time, because content started to feel so. Just to give a little bit of a backstory, I'm not the biggest fan of being online. I remember what it was like to consume Jay Alvarez and Alexis Ren when they were like doing all the GoPro stuff and whatever. I remember that was like, for me, that was like prime influencing. And I remember walking away from every single piece of content and being like, why can't my life be like that? Why can't I do that? Am I a failure? And it was because they glorified this highlight reel of their life. We didn't know that Alexis Ren was struggling with her eating disorder or that Jay Alvarez was abusive. We didn't know that, All we saw were these two very good-looking people living their best life in their early 20s and being like, that's attainable, right? So not only are you thinking, oh, I can do that, but you're also going, but I can't do that because I'm not doing that because I'm the same age as them and I'm, here I am struggling. So you kind of think less of yourself and now you are, full to the brim with imposter syndrome. I started noticing something that I thought was very unhealthy. I started noticing the glorification of being wholesome, of having a matcha first thing, 5 a.m. in the morning, and then meditating. And I'm like, what nut job can do all of this? What nut job is waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and if I wake up at 5, best believe I'm having a nap between 1 and 2 p.m. Like I'm having a siesta. And also you aren't a fuck doing this stuff when you're hungover or when there's someone who's died in your family. That's what I want to see. I don't want this. I drink matcha. Matcha tastes like grass. Okay? Stop it. It tastes like your front lawn.
It does.
Stop that. Yeah, it does. It just looks tasty.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That's true.
Yeah, we're glorifying this. And you know what? We're getting ourselves right back into Alexis Ren and Jay Alvarez. We're getting ourselves into, I'm a failure because I'm not waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, dipping my face into a thing of ice, going to gym 5 times a day, and so on and so forth. And so I'm like, no. Let's talk about the authentic experience of making bad decisions and that being the drive to make a good decision. Being like, no, I can't believe I got I overdid it again. You know what? For the next week, I'm going to do da-da-da-da-da-da-da at the gym. And then being like, oh my God, I fucking love this. I'm going to carry on doing it. But you wouldn't have gotten to that place of like, I need to be better if you didn't fail, if you didn't fall, and if you didn't go to that stupid afters and obs. If you weren't there looking around and people going, I don't know any of you guys and I need to get out of here. If you didn't do that, if you didn't feel guilty and dirty sometimes, if you didn't surrender to the heartbreak, the hurt, the disgust, the grotesque side of yourself, you wouldn't be able to experience yourself in enlightenment. And that, for me, it was the act of not being wholesome, but being whole that made us people. And I just wanted to dismantle that whole conversation of like going to gym at 4 o'clock in the morning and then meditating and then journaling and then like, God, I've got self-help coming out of my ears. And it's like, self-help is here. Self-help is going, it didn't actually work for me. I'm going to try something else. I don't need to read a book about the 5 a.m. club to know what the 5 a.m. Literally, if you want to read the 5 a.m. club, just read the title. Like it's literally all in the title. But so that I saw that and then I was like, this is a very real conversation. And I spoke to someone who I genuinely saw as a creative and I was like, okay, make this with me. And this is how I want to make it. It needs to be a minute. This is the piece of music that I've used as a piece of inspiration. Listen to it and let's discuss. And I chatted to my friend Eddie and we had half an hour. It was a really shitty day in Cape Town. And we shot it. And I just said, and we shot it in 3 takes. We did a wide, a medium, and a close-up. And he just said, what is the biggest feeling here? And I said, don't feel sorry for me. I've put myself in this mess. But my God, is it fulfilling, to know that I have the ability to have real conversations. But my thing is that I'm going to have to go through some shit to have these real conversations. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some stuff, but again, don't feel sorry for me. I put myself in this mess. And so that's, walking into the sea, but being in a whole thing of like white, because I'm this innocent person and I'm going into things blindly and I'm doing it on purpose with my chest, and then knowing that it feels awful, but it's so rewarding. It's this, being this, how do I say, anyway, I forget the term, but like being a person who experiences duality at the same time, right? So it felt really good that I could have that conversation. It felt really scary because I didn't know if people were ready to have that conversation. And at the same time, I felt lucky. Like, I feel lucky a lot of the time when I experience sadness or whatever, because I'm just like, the only way that you can experience happiness is by welcoming sadness, right? So I was just like, what a gift it was to be in that place for quite some time, because now here I am. And a lot of people feel seen. And that's all I can hope for in this world, that people feel seen. So, yeah.
I mean, what got me, it's how relatable it is. I mean, yes, you have the small population that's waking up at 4.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I was one of them.
Oh my God.
But, I did it because it made me feel good.
Yeah.
And I do things that make me feel good.
Totally.
If I know that I'm hitting the gym at 5 and I'm sweating my ass off, and then by 6:30 I'm starting work, I feel amazing. And therefore I continue to do it.
Yes.
Regardless of,
Yeah.
don't post about it.
No, but you
just
see,
do
that's the difference. It's the difference of this performative. No, you don't. You wake up groggy as shit. You put your camera on your tripod, and then you get back into bed like a psychopath, and you go, like, what are we doing? So that's like, do it on your ace. But I mean, my God, if I'm helping a homeless person, I don't need to get my phone out. You know what I mean? Do it because it makes you feel good. Don't do it because someone's going to validate your feelings.
100%.
You know what I mean? That's where it gets dangerous, because you're so wholesome, but you need someone to tell you, yeah, like,
I guess we scared of asking, why do we do things? Because that leads us to perhaps doing it for the likes, doing it for the validation, instead of doing it because we truly feel called to do it, and doing it because it makes us feel good.
yeah.
And I guess there's a bit of fear going a bit deeper as to why we do things.
Of course, right? Yeah, we crave community, and I get that. But I think sometimes you need to see things for what it is. Like, if you have a diet culture that you're really into, don't shove it down my throat.
100%.
If you are heavily religious, don't shove it down my throat. That's your thing. That's your journey at the end of the day. So with your lifestyle, why do you need to be like, if you're not waking up at 4:00 in the morning, investing in stocks, having a matcha, then you're a failure? That's the same concept as your diet culture or your beliefs. Don't shove it down my throat. Just exist. Let's coexist. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. But it doesn't need to be like, if you're not doing this every day, this isn't why you're reaching your potential. Like, no, the reason I'm not reaching my potential is purely, because of other things, So that was my thing. I mean, if you do it for you, then do it for you.
Do you feel like you still struggle with imposter syndrome?
Oh my gosh. Are you even a creative if you don't? Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it's deeply rooted in the fact that I don't have some silly piece of paper in my arsenal saying that I graduated with this under my belt, I think that there is a certain, we don't need degrees anymore. We don't need that tertiary education. It's a want, not a need, in a lot of industries. I'm not speaking on all of them, but what you get from that is a sense of purpose and a sense of being. I will forever wonder if I would have been a better creative if I went and I practically sat in a class and learned and listened to someone teach me about f-stops and ISO and aperture, as opposed to sitting in my room at YouTube University and going, oh shit, okay. Yes, I got up and I did it, but sometimes I wonder that when I was at my most malleable and I learned, would I be a different creative? Would I be a more secure creative? Because, you got those notches on your belt. Like, it's kind of like when you're not a real creative until someone's told you no, because then you've experienced the full experience. Like, it's not all good all the time. And so I wonder if I would be more secure. And so a lot of my imposter syndrome is linked to the fact that I'm self-taught.
Gotcha.
And seeing people who know that, like, they know what they're talking about because they know what they're talking about. I'm just here like, yeah, what they said. And another thing, you know, like it's that I'm speaking from experience, they're speaking from practicality, like they've learned it. So,
Okay. I guess the idea I'm trying to play with is, can imposter syndrome be a good thing? Because it shows us truly deep down, one, where we want to be, and two, perhaps where we think that we can be.
I don't know. I think it's your experience of imposter syndrome. Every time I've gone through it, it's been nothing but negative for me because it means that I'm living in a world of comparison. And I'm comparing myself to people that aren't even doing the same shit as me. You know, these are aesthetic Instagram girlies who are posting things and have a beautifully curated feed. And I'm here making khat. Like, we are not the same. And so we're not going to have the same experience. But why am I beating myself up because I don't look like that? You know, it's when I mute those people or unfollow those people that I do my best, because I don't need them to like, there is enough room for everyone. Everyone can do everything and we can all coexist. And so I think imposter syndrome is, it reminds us that there are other people out there. But at the same time, I think it's a self-sabotage. You know, people who are working on their craft and doing it aren't really concerned with what you're doing, you know?
100%.
So I think, maybe that's when you're slowing down a little bit and that's when you need to go, okay, maybe I should put my phone away and actually do something. Yeah.
Awards. What does that mean to you?
Oh my God, I would love an award. I've really struggled feeling seen my whole life. And so an award sometimes would feel like that to me, even though I know the real award is me to me. But the nominations are great. It means that, you know, I am recognized. But even though my life's purpose is to tell stories, I've never gotten that validation from some sort of institution or community or whatever that like, yeah, we see you and you are one of the best that we have. I kind of just as I said, it would tick something off my belt. I've never won an award. I've received I've got loads of awards where it's like, you know, and these 5 people, but I've never been the best in my field, and that will always be a driving factor. And I know deep down that the moment I get an award, I'll realize that was so fleeting, you know, that I didn't need that in the first place.
Yeah, I guess a deeper question would be, would you be okay with not receiving it, regardless?
Break my little heart.
Even if you've...
I don't think I'm secure enough to answer that question, because right now, I don't think I'd be able to say that I'd be okay with it. But I think, ask me that question in 30 years' time and I'll be like, what the fuck is an award for? What? Like, you're giving me something, you know, that's like relative to everyone's experience and you're going, yeah, you're the best. Like, you can't give someone the best director or the best actor because it's all experience-based. But I would be able to say that and believe that in like 30 years' time. Right now, I can just say it. But yeah, it would break
What do you
my
think is
heart.
going to change?
I think I'll stop caring. I think I'll stop caring, and I think I would have made peace with who I am a little bit more. Like I still self-sabotage. I still tell myself I'm not good enough and all of that stuff that, you know, people in their 20s do. And I think I'll just, you know, like there's this person that I'm currently enjoying a lot of their content, and I was watching one of his things and he was like, you know, at some point someone's going to see your feed and they're going to see a photo of you and they're going to say, sus. And I was like, shit, yeah. And he was like, and you need to be okay with that, with the fact that someone's looked at you and gone, sus. And I think that in a few years' time, I'll get to the place where it's like, sus? Me? Okay. You know? So I think that's what will change. I think I'll just be a little bit more secure because I'm still figuring out who I am, what makes me tick, what I like, what I don't like.
100%.
So, yeah.
I think that's also where I'm at, is the pursuit rather than the outcome.
Yeah.
Because the pursuit
Oh.
makes you feel good every day. And, of course, there's a driving force behind what you're doing, especially if you're self-aware about what that is. And then the pursuit of that thing is more exciting, should be more exciting than actually
Yeah.
achieving the thing.
Yeah. When I gym, I'm like, I'll be crying because I get quite overwhelmed with emotions. And then I'll be like, enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey, like on a run. I'm just like, you love this, because your body keeps score. Like your body doesn't know. Like if you're telling yourself, yeah, you ain't shit, like you hear that, So instead of that like negative talk, I'm like, this is what it's about. This is why you love what you do. The pain drives you, And it's like that for me, I have to tell myself that. So yeah, I fully agree with you that the journey is in the pursuit of the journey.
Yeah.
The pursuit of the end, should I say.
Yeah, not to be cliche, but
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Cassidy, this has been amazing.
Thank you so much.
The last part of the podcast is called the fast fire.
Ooh.
So I'm going to ask you these quick questions, and if you could answer in a word or a short sentence,
Okay.
that would be amazing.
Okay.
What's one truth that you hold on to, regardless of what's happening around you?
It's not that deep.
What's one rule you would make if you had a magic wand? Everyone has to follow. No questions asked.
No more small talk.
Oh, that's good.
Like, I don't care what your favorite color is.
Oh, that's good. And you know what's awkward is when you first meet someone,
You're like, yeah.
or actually it's someone that you know, it's a
Yeah.
business meeting, and then that first kind of like minute,
Yeah.
hey, how are you?
Oh my, yeah. You. God.
So I'm trying to change that.
Yeah,
in
no more
terms
small
of,
talk.
The way, because I mean, your first question could be so disarming for that person. And yeah, so I agree with that.
Okay.
What's one thing you would say to 20-year-old Cassidy right now?
There's power in not knowing how to do something. I think it's like we always feel like we need to know more, and then like just for an example, I've learned so many different acting techniques that sometimes I worry if I'm being truthful or not, or if I'm just utilizing a technique to get myself there, like manipulating my body to feel an experience or an emotion, as opposed to saying, hey Cassidy, what is it like to experience loss? Go. There's power in not knowing how to do everything, because then you do it from a really real, vulnerable, authentic place.
Why do we put, just a follow-up question on that, why do we put pressure on ourselves to have everything figured out? And the context is running this business. You have to have the vision of where you're going. And then it's kind of like reverse engineering to be like, what do I need to do right now? What do I need to do next month? What do I need to do this year?
I think it's because we're living in a world where knowledge is power, and so if we know everything that we can about everything, then we can make an educated decision. But if you're acting from a place of feeling, then you may fall flat on your face. Again, it's a whole control thing, right? It's like knowing who the people are that like you need to kind of do like your SWOT analysis and who your competitors are and whatever. Like you don't actually need to know who your competitors are as long as you know what your product is, type of thing. But it's also like, oh, if you know who your competitors are, then you know what their downfalls are and what their peaks are and their things. So it's a being able to make an educated decision with all that knowledge. But sometimes that's always, then you're not necessarily acting from a place of faith.
It's also a vulnerability thing, right?
Yeah.
Because essentially, if I say that actually I don't have everything figured out,
Oh my God, how cool is that? Yeah.
but I perceive that as being
weak.
or there's pressure I put on myself to know,
Yeah.
because that's who I identify as, this person who's just supposed to know everything.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't have to know everything about everything all the time. Like don't ask me where the Sea Point baths are, because I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I figured that out one day. I was just like, why do we have to know everything about everything? Like I suck at general knowledge.
3 truths. So if you were standing on a stage in front of 60 million people, in person, virtual, but there's 60 million people and you're on the stage. What's 3 truths that you would say to them? You could only say 3 things.
Feminism doesn't exist. You're either sexist or you're not. Vulnerability is power. The 5 people you keep closest to you are the product of who you are. You end up being the product of who they are. So if you hang around with losers, you're gonna be a loser. Like, come on.
Don't be a loser.
Yeah, don't like. I had to tell someone that because I was just like, you're hanging out with a bunch of like, and it's not a bad thing, but this person wanted to like start a company and whatever. And I was like, you can do that. But all of your friends either don't have jobs and are living off their parents or are like work in, their restaurants or whatever, like they're a manager. And I'm like, that's the circle you keep closest to you. You're going to end up being a product of that. So you're going to end up being like, you're going to think that your biggest achievement in life is being a manager of a restaurant. Whereas if you surround yourself with a bunch of business owners or entrepreneurs or whatnot, the conversation is going to be very different. What your day looks like is going to be very different. If you surround yourself with bums, you're going to end up being a bum, So just like, that a life coach told that to me in a bar when I was overseas once. Like all of our friends were chatting and then he just sat next to me and he was like, I'm a life coach. And I was like, tell me everything,
You learned some valuable lessons.
I did. Yeah, I did. That was one of them.
Cool. Thank you. Cassidy, thank you. This was amazing. Thank you for showing up as your authentic self.
Thank you for having me.
Online, but here. Thank you for the impact that you're making.
Appreciate
and
it.
Sharing, not just making people laugh,
but
also educating. So
thank you.
Thank you for giving me your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Cool. I really enjoyed it.